Tom Gardner had lived on his ranch in northern Arizona for many years, long enough to believe he understood every change of the seasons. He knew when the winds would shift, when the nights would start cooling, and when the first snow would usually fall. Most winters came gently at first, soft flakes, light frost, and mornings that required only an extra coat. But this year nature changed without warning. That morning, Tom stepped out onto his porch and breathed in the cold air. He felt a light sting on his cheeks and noticed thin gray clouds gathering on the horizon. Still, he didn't think much of it. Early cold spells were not impossible, though they rarely grew serious. He had cattle spread across wide pasture land, and he planned to ride out as usual to check the herd. His ranch hands were busy repairing fences before real winter arrived, so Tom saddled his horse himself. "Won't be gone long," he said to no one, patting the horse's neck. The horse gave a small snort, as if unsure of the day ahead. As Tom rode out, he kept reaching down to adjust the collar of his coat. The temperature continued dropping, sharper each minute. A thin layer of frost had formed on the grass, making it sparkle like glass under the rising sun. Despite the bitter air, Tom felt steady and confident. He had been through dozens of winters, and a little cold didn't trouble him. But nature had a quiet way of surprising even the most experienced people. A couple of hours passed before Tom began to notice the change. The sky had darkened, covering the land in a shadowy shade of gray. The wind pushed harder, brushing past him with a colder bite. Snowflakes sat first, only a few gone, drifting down. Tom squinted up at the sky, surprised by how quickly the weather had turned. Well, that wasn't in the forecast, he muttered. He turned his horse toward the far pasture where part of his herd usually gathered in a sheltered dip in the land. The wind grew stronger, lifting more snow into the air. The flakes were no longer soft or gentle. They fell fast, swirling, piling. Filling the air like a moving curtain. By the time Tom reached the pasture, the landscape had changed completely. The ground disappeared beneath a layer of white. The air felt heavy. His horse stepped carefully, lifting its legs higher with each stride, uncertain of what lay beneath the snow. Tom checked the cattle as quickly as he could. Most of them were already moving toward a cluster of low trees on their own, guided by instinct. He let out a sigh of relief, but also a groan of frustration. He had planned to mend a broken section of fence on the far side of the pasture, but now the storm made every step more difficult. "This will have to wait," he said. The wind blew harder, and Tom pulled his hat down tightly. His eyelashes collected tiny crystals of ice, and his fingers began to ache even inside his gloves. He realized he needed to head back before the storm grew any worse. He nudged his horse and turned toward home, but the snow came faster and thicker. Within minutes, Tom could barely see more than a few feet ahead. The sky and ground blended together, creating a white blur that made it hard to know which direction he was traveling. He tried to stay calm, reminding himself that he knew these trails well. He had ridden them since he was young. Still, the land looked different when covered by a sudden storm. The horse slowed, unsure. Its ears flicked back and forth as if listening for guidance. Tom leaned forward and stroked its neck gently. "Easy now. We'll be home soon." But he wasn't sure. The cold pushed into him more deeply. His breath came out in icy clouds. His face felt numb. The storm had become more than an inconvenience, it was a genuine danger. The kind he had not expected. Tom tried to look for familiar signs, fence posts, old oak trees, the rocky ridge near his property, but everything was hidden behind the white curtain of endless falling snow. He pulled his coat tighter, wishing he had brought an extra blanket or more equipment. He had planned only a short ride, and now he regretted his confidence. Time passed slowly. Each minute felt stretched and heavy. Tom kept leaning forward to encourage his horse, but the animal grew more tired with each step. Snow gathered around its legs, slowing its movement. Its breathing became deeper and heavier. "Come on, boy," Tom said softly, his voice shaking from the cold. But even the loyal horse, strong and dependable, could only fight so long against nature's sudden force. After one more slow step, the animal stumbled slightly. Tom quickly steadied it, but the horse's energy continued fading. The snow had become too deep. the wind too strong, the cold too harsh. Finally, the horse stopped completely. It lowered its head, letting out a long, exhausted breath that formed a cloud of mist in the air. Tom knew the poor animal could go no farther. He slid off the saddle, landing knee-deep in the snow, and held the horse's face gently. "You rest here," he whispered. "I'll come back for you." He didn't want to leave the animal behind, but he had no choice. He had to keep going if he wanted to find help or shelter before the storm drained the last of his strength. Tom looked around, but the world was nothing but white and wind. Each breath he took made his chest feel tighter. His fingers tingled and then grew numb, even inside thick gloves. His legs felt heavy, and he stumbled as he tried to take a step. He was still several miles from home. Now he had to walk. He tried to remember landmarks hidden beneath the snow. Maybe there was a rocky slope to the south. Maybe there was a dried stream to the west that led toward his ranch. But even his memory became cloudy under the pressure of the storm. Every step felt uncertain. He sank into the snow and had to lift his legs high to move forward. His coat grew stiff from frozen moisture. The wind stung his eyes, forcing him to close them halfway. His thoughts slowed. His breath became shorter. Tom had always considered himself a strong, capable man. He had survived dry summers, cold winters, storms and droughts. But this storm was different. It wasn't just whether it was a force that could overwhelm anyone who underestimated it. As he walked, his mind drifted back to the warmth of his home. The fireplace, the kitchen, the smell of coffee in the morning, the comfort of dry socks and warm blankets. He longed for all of it now, more than he had ever realized. He paused for a moment, leaning forward to catch his breath. Snow fell onto his shoulders and hat, creating a heavy layer. The wind pushed against him again, encouraging him to move. He took another step, then another, but his strength weakened. His legs shook. He felt tired in a way he had never felt before, as if the cold was draining the energy from his body itself. He looked up at the sky where the sky should have been. Everything was white. He wasn't even sure he was moving in the right direction anymore. His thoughts blurred. Even his determination wavered. For the first time in many years, Tom felt unsure of what to do. He knew he needed shelter, warmth, and guidance. He knew he needed help. But in the middle of this endless silent world of snow and wind, he felt completely alone. Little did he know that someone else was already out there in the storm. Someone small, calm, and far more familiar with the land than he could ever be. Someone who understood the snow, the cold, and the secrets of surviving in winter's harshest moments. But Tom hadn't met her yet. Not on this day. Not in this storm. Not until the moment he needed help the most. Tom struggled through the snow, taking slow steps that grew weaker with each passing minute. His breath came out in short clouds, fading quickly in the cold air. The wind pushed against him like a steady wall, forcing him to lean forward with every step. His arms felt heavy, his legs numb, and his thoughts scattered. He tried to stay calm, repeating to himself that he just needed to keep moving. But the storm gave him no comfort. The sky had turned into a blanket of white, and he could no longer tell what direction he was headed. Even the ground felt unfamiliar beneath his boots. Tom stopped again, lowering his head to protect his face from the harsh wind. He closed his eyes, trying to gather the strength to take another step. His whole body trembled, not from fear but from the cold that had settled deep inside him. When he opened his eyes again, he saw a shadow in the distance. He blinked, unsure if it was real or simply something his tired mind had imagined. The shape was small, much smaller than a grown person, and it moved with a light, steady motion that didn't match the wild storm. Tom tried to focus, wiping the frost from his eyelashes. The figure came closer, stepping carefully but confidently across the snow. As it approached, Tom realized it was a young girl, probably no older than 13 or 14. She had long, dark braids that hung over her shoulders. In her clothing, soft, warm layers of wool and leather seemed designed for weather far colder than what he wore. Snowflakes rested gently on her hair, but she didn't seem bothered by the storm at all. Tom stared in surprise. Completely unsure how a girl so young could be out here alone in such harsh weather, she walked toward him with a calmness that confused him. It was as if she belonged in the snow, as if the storm was nothing more than a passing breeze to her. When she reached him, she looked up with steady brown eyes that held both curiosity and confidence. "You shouldn't be out here," Tom said, his voice trembling from the cold. "It's too dangerous." The girl tilted her head slightly, studying his shivering form. Her expression held no fear, only thoughtful concern. "You are cold," she said softly. Her voice was gentle, but assured. "You need to stop walking, or you will become weaker." Tom let out a short, breathless laugh. "I know I'm cold. I need to get home." The girl looked around at the swirling snow. "Home is far. The storm is growing stronger." Tom tried to straighten himself, hoping to show more strength than he actually felt. "I've handled storms before." The girl smiled faintly at that, not unkindly, but as someone who knew something he didn't. "My name is Alina," she said. "My family is Apache. I know these lands. I can help." Tom blinked again, trying to process what she had said. He had heard of the Apache families who lived not too far from his ranch. They knew the land better than most people, especially the colder parts of the region. Still, it was hard for him to believe that this small girl could help him survive, whether that even grown adults struggled with. "Alina," he repeated, his voice weak. "I'm Tom." She nodded respectfully, then looked him over again with sharp attention. "Your face is red from the cold. Your hands are stiff. You will not walk much longer in this storm." Tom frowned slightly, not because she was wrong, but because she was entirely right. His fingers had grown so numb he could barely curl them. His legs felt like heavy pieces of wood, and every breath felt colder and sharper than the last. "How are you out here?" he asked. "Where's your family?" Alina turned her gaze toward the distant trees. "I was tracking elk when the storm came. My family is not far, but I cannot walk back now. The snow is too deep for the path." Tom's eyebrows lifted. "So you're stuck too?" Alina nodded. "Yes, but it is all right. I know how to stay warm." Tom stared at her, wondering how she could say such a thing with such calm confidence. "Without a fire?" he asked, his teeth chattering as he spoke. "Yes," she said simply. "We do not always need fire. The snow is not our enemy." Tom couldn't help but look around again at the storm. The snow covered everything in his tracks, the trees, even the sky. To him, it wasn't a friend at all. It was something that could take his life if he made a wrong choice, but Alina didn't seem bothered by it. Her cheeks were only slightly pink from the cold, and her breathing was steady. There was no sign of fear or worry in her expression. Tom couldn't help but ask, "How do you stay warm without fire?" Alina stepped closer and gently took hold of his coat sleeve, guiding him toward a small dip in the land where the wind wasn't as strong. "I will show you," she said, "but you must listen." Tom hesitated for only a moment. He was tired, too tired to argue on. The girl seemed to know exactly what she was doing. He followed her, grateful that she moved slowly enough for him to keep up. When they reached the small sheltered area, Alina knelt in the snow and pressed her hand against the surface. "Snow can keep you warm if you use it the right way," she said. "It keeps the wind away." Tom shivered again. "Snow? Warm?" Alina nodded patiently. "It can protect you. It is cold, but it is still better than the wind. The wind takes your strength. The snow does not." Tom watched her work, surprised by how naturally she handled everything. She began packing down the snow with her hands, forming a smooth surface. Then she showed him where to sit, guiding him carefully. "You must stay still," she explained. "Moving too much makes your body lose more heat." Tom did as she said, though it felt strange to sit so still in the middle of a storm. Alina then sat near him, not too close, but close enough to share some warmth. The storm continued around them, but in this small, sheltered space. The wind was softer, and Tom felt a tiny bit safer. His breathing slowed, the shaking in his hands eased just a little. Alina watched the snowflakes fall, her eyes thoughtful. "My grandfather taught me this when I was small," she said. "He said the land can help you if you respect it." Tom listened, his thoughts quieter now. He wondered how someone so young could be so wise. She didn't boast. She didn't show off. She simply shared what she knew because she saw he needed help. "You saved me," Tom said quietly. Finally realizing how dangerous his situation had been, Alina shook her head softly. "Not yet. The night will be cold. But we can rest here until the storm grows lighter." Tom nodded slowly. He didn't want to admit it, but she was right again, as they sat there surrounded by snow. Two very different people, one young and one old. One experienced with ranch life and one raised in the traditions of the Apache. Tom felt a spark of hope inside him. He had thought he was alone in the storm, but he had stumbled upon someone who understood the land far better than he ever had, someone who could help him survive what he never expected, someone who appeared exactly at the moment he needed guidance. Most little did he know that the lessons Alina was about to teach him would stay with him for the rest of his life. Tom sat quietly beside Alina, feeling the cold settle into his bones like a slow, heavy weight. Even though the small dip in the land shielded them from most of the wind, the storm still pressed against them with steady strength. Snowflakes coated his coat and hat, turning him into a bulky white figure in the storm. Yet beside him, Alina seemed calm, almost peaceful, as if she understood every whisper of the wind. For a long moment, Tom didn't say anything. He watched the snow drifting in front of them and tried to catch his breath. He could feel some warmth returning to his hands and feet, not much, but enough to keep him aware and awake. Alina glanced at him occasionally, checking his condition with a careful eye. "You are breathing easier now," she observed softly. Tom nodded, grateful for even that small improvement. "A little. I didn't know snow could help like this," Alina smiled gently. "Many people think snow only brings problems. But my grandfather says the land gives us everything we need if we take time to understand it." Tom pulled his coat tighter around himself. "I guess I never learned that kind of thinking." Alina looked at him, her expression thoughtful but not judging. "It is all right. Everyone learns different things." Tom gave a tired chuckle. "Well, today I'm learning a lot more than I planned to." Alina reached into a small pouch tied to her belt and pulled out a piece of dried fruit. "Eat this," she said, handing it to him. "It will help your strength." Tom accepted it gratefully. His hands were shaking slightly as he lifted it to his mouth. The fruit was chewy and sweet, and the sugar woke him up a little more. He hadn't realized how hungry he was until the first bite hit his tongue. "Thank you," he said. Alina nodded again. Then she began scooping snow with her hands, forming a small curved wall behind them. Tom watched in confusion. "What are you doing?" he asked. "This will help keep more wind away," she explained. "Wind takes warmth very fast. Snow can block it." Tom shook his head slowly, amazed that she knew all this by heart. "Where did you learn all of this? Did your family teach you?" Alina pressed the snow into place before answering. "Yes. My grandfather teaches us how our ancestors lived. He says knowing the land is important. It helps us stay safe." Tom watched her work, surprised at how steady her hands were despite the cold. He tried helping her, but his movements were clumsy. Alina didn't laugh. She simply guided him with soft instructions. "Press the snow like this," she said, demonstrating with her palm. "Make it smooth so the wind cannot pass through." Tom followed her lead as best as he could. Slowly, the small shelter grew, becoming a curved wall that wrapped around them. Even though it was only made of snow, Tom immediately felt a difference. The wind softened and the cold felt less sharp. Alina sat down again, brushing snow from her coat. "Now we wait for a moment," she said. "You must warm your hands and feet. If they stay too cold, it will make your body weak." Tom lifted his hands and rubbed them together, feeling some tingling return. He wiggled his toes inside his boots. The warmth was slow, but it was there. "How do you know so much about the cold?" he asked. Alina smiled in a quiet way. "I have lived here my whole life. My family teaches us how to be part of the land, not fight against it. The snow, the wind, the sun, they are all part of our home. We learn to listen." Tom watched her small face, noticing how focused she was. Despite her age, she carried a calm confidence that he found comforting. Listening to the land, Tom repeated, "That's something I never really thought about." Lena picked up a small handful of snow and let it fall through her fingers. "Sometimes people think they must always control everything. But my grandfather says the land is older and wiser. If you respect it, it shows you what to do." Tom took a slow breath. "I think I've been doing the opposite most of my life." Alina looked up at him, her eyes soft with understanding. "Today you are learning something new." "That is good," he chuckled gently. "Feels strange learning from someone your age." Lena didn't seem offended. Instead, she said, "It does not matter how old someone is. If they know something helpful, they can teach." Tom nodded. She was right. After a short while, Alina reached for his coat sleeve again. "We should make a snow shelter," she said. "The storm will last much longer. Sitting here is not enough for the whole night." Tom felt his chest tighten. "A snow shelter? Like what? Dig into it." Alina shook her head with a reassuring smile. "Not digging. We will build it. I will show you." She stood up carefully and began walking a few steps away, looking for the right place. The snow was deep, but she moved with ease, as if she had walked this way many times before. Tom followed her slowly, trying not to slip. Alina stopped at a spot where the snow had piled higher than in other places. "Here," she said. "This is good." Tom crossed his arms, partly for warmth and partly out of curiosity. He watched as Alina began shaping the snow with her hands. She packed it down, pressing firmly, creating a flat area. "This will be the floor," she explained. "We need it smooth." Tom tried to help, but his hands were stiff. Alina noticed and guided him again. "Do not press too hard all at once," she instructed. "Make it flat slowly. Your body will be warmer if the ground is firm." Tom nodded, focusing on her movements. Together, they pressed the snow until it became a level, compact base. When it was ready, Lena started building low walls around the space. "Snow can hold shape if you treat it gently," she said. "If you hit it, it will break. But if you press it slowly, it becomes strong." Tom watched in awe as the walls grew higher. He had never imagined snow could form something like this without melting or falling apart. Alina worked with steady hands, her breathing calm and controlled. After a while, Tom tried shaping part of the wall himself. His work wasn't as neat as Alina's, but he followed her instructions carefully. Slowly, the shelter took form half-circle. Thick walls, and a space big enough for both of them to sit inside. "It will block the wind and keep your heat inside," Lena said proudly. Tom stepped inside the small snow shelter, feeling the difference immediately. The air was still cold, but it no longer bit at his skin. The wind couldn't reach him here. "This is incredible," he said. "I never knew something like this was possible." Lena smiled, brushing snow from her hands. "Our ancestors used this when they needed to travel long distances in winter. It is simple, but strong." Tom lowered himself carefully inside, feeling his body relax for the first time since the storm began. Alina joined him, sitting close enough that their warmth mixed in the small space. For a moment, they sat quietly, listening to the muffled sound of the storm outside. Tom felt a deep sense of gratitude, not just for the shelter, but for the girl beside him who had appeared at the perfect moment. "You've saved my life," Tom said softly. It wasn't an exaggeration. Without Alina, he knew he would never have lasted long in such a storm. Alina shook her head gently. "No, the land helped us. I only showed you what it taught me." Tom smiled tiredly. "Well, then, thank you for listening to the land." Lena's eyes brightened with warmth. "You listened to. That is why we are safe now." The small shelter glowed softly with the light filtering through the snow above them. It felt almost like a hidden room, peaceful and protected from the storm's harshness. Tom leaned his head against the wall of snow, closing his eyes for a moment. The air around him was still cold, but it no longer scared him. He felt himself growing stronger again slowly but surely. Beside him, Alina sat quietly, keeping watch. She had promised to help him survive the night, and she intended to keep that promise. The snow shelter grew quiet as evening settled in, wrapping the world outside in a soft, white stillness. The storm had not stopped, but inside the little dome of snow Alina had built, the air felt steady and calm. Tom leaned back against the cool wall, feeling the strange but comforting warmth that collected around them. It wasn't like the warmth of a fire, no bright flames, no glowing light, but a quiet, gentle warmth created by their own breath and bodies. Tom breathed slowly, grateful that his shivers had finally calmed. His fingers still tingled, but they no longer felt numb. His boots were cold, but he could feel his toes again. It was amazing how much difference a simple snow shelter could make. He glanced at Alina, who sat across from him with her hands resting calmly in her lap. Her eyes half closed as she listened to the muffled wind. "How did you learn to build something like this so fast?" Tom finally asked. Alina opened her eyes and smiled softly. "I have practiced since I was small. My grandfather teaches us every winter. He says we must know how to use what the land gives us." Tom nodded slowly. "Your grandfather sounds like a wise man." "He is," Alina replied. "He says that winter is not a thing to fear. It is a teacher. It shows us who listens and who does not."
Oh.
Tom chuckled gently. "I think I haven't been listening much." Alina shook her head. "Today you listened. That is enough." Tom felt a small warmth in his chest that had nothing to do with the shelter. It came from her words, steady and honest. For someone so young, she carried a strength that made him feel safe. He closed his eyes for a moment, letting the softness of the snow surround them. But as the minutes passed, the storm grew louder again. The wind pressed against the shelter with a low humming sound, and snowflakes pattered lightly overhead. Tom listened carefully, trying to judge the time. The dim light inside the shelter had faded, telling him that daylight outside was nearly gone. "We're going to be here all night, aren't we?" Tom asked. Alina nodded. "Yes, it is not safe to walk until the wind slows. But we will be fine." Tom wasn't used to listening to someone else take the lead, especially in a situation like this. Yet he didn't feel embarrassed. He felt thankful. "You seem very sure about that." Alina looked around the shelter, tapping the wall with her fingers. "The snow is strong. It will keep us warm and safe. We just need to stay awake sometimes and check each other." "Right?" Tom raised an eyebrow. "Check each other?" Alina nodded seriously. "If you sleep too long in the cold, your body becomes too still. We must make sure we stay warm. I will wake you sometimes." Tom felt touched by her concern. "And I'll wake you too," Alina smiled. "Yes, we help each other." The wind outside howled softly, but inside the shelter, the quiet made it feel like a small world of its own, soft, pale, and peaceful. Tom let his shoulders relax and took a slow breath. The cold didn't feel like a threat anymore, not while Alina guided him. After a while, Alina opened the small pouch tied to her belt and brought out another piece of dried fruit. She offered it to Tom first, but he shook his head. "You take it. You need your strength." Alina gently pushed his hand forward. "We share. You need it too." Tom accepted it with a quiet smile. They ate slowly, the sweetness helping their tired bodies stay alert. The storm continued outside, steady but less angry than earlier. Tom could hear the soft whirling of snowflakes, almost like whispers. He wrapped his arms around his chest, trying not to move too much. Alina had taught him that unnecessary movement made the body lose warmth. So he sat still, breathing slowly, letting the shelter do its work. A little later, Alina gently touched his arm. "Move your fingers," she said softly. Tom wiggled them. They felt stiff, but not numb. "Still working," he said. "Good," Alina replied. "If they stop feeling warm, tell me." Tom nodded. He didn't want to imagine what would happen if they got too cold again. Alina checked her own hands and feet as well, rubbing them gently to keep warmth flowing. Her movements were calm. In practice, she knew exactly what to do. Tom continued watching her with quiet admiration. "Do you ever get scared in storms like this?" he asked. Alina looked up thoughtfully. "Sometimes," she admitted, "but my grandfather says that fear is just a message. It tells us to pay attention. If we listen to the message, then fear becomes something helpful." Tom raised his brows in surprise. "That's a wise way of seeing things." Alina's face warmed with a small smile. My grandfather says many wise things. Sometimes I think he has lived through every winter in the world." Tom chuckled softly. "I'd like to meet him one day." Lena tilted her head. "You can. Our home is not far from your ranch. My family trades with your neighbors sometimes." Tom blinked in surprise. "Really? How have I never met you?" Alina shrugged lightly. "I stay with my family most of the time. I do not ride into town often." Tom nodded slowly. It made sense. Many ranchers knew of the Apache families, but didn't always cross paths. Still, he felt grateful fate had crossed theirs today. As the night grew deeper, the shelter became dim. The snow above them glowed faintly from the light of the moon, making the walls look like they were lit from within. Tom found the effect calming. The soft glow and the quiet around them made the moment feel almost magical. Alina leaned her head gently against the snow wall, her eyes half closed. "You must keep breathing slow and deep," she reminded him. "It helps your body stay warm." Exhaling softly until his breaths became steady. After a while, Alina began sharing small stories from her family's short tales her grandfather told her, stories about winter moons, animals of the forest, and the meaning of snow. Her voice floated softly in the small shelter, adding warmth to the cold surrounding them. Tom listened closely. Comforted by the gentle rhythm of her words, she told him about how her people learned to understand winter by watching animals. How some animals moved slowly, saving their energy. How others made small hidden homes. And how the land always gave hints if people paid attention. Tom found himself relaxing, feeling lighter than he had in hours. He didn't even notice the cold as deeply anymore at one point. A distant sound rose outside, a long, soft howl carried gently by the wind. Tom stiffened slightly. Alina opened her eyes and looked toward the sound. Her expression remained calm. "It's just the wolves," she said quietly. Tom swallowed. "Are they?" "Close." "They are moving through the hills," Alina replied. "They will not come here. They follow their own paths." Tom let out a slow breath. He was relieved. He trusted her judgment now more than his own instincts. If she wasn't worried, he didn't need to be either. The howling faded, placed again by the peaceful sound of wind brushing over snow. Time passed slowly, but the shelter held strong. Alina checked the walls from time to time, pressing gently to make sure the snow stayed firm. Tom tried to rest his eyes, but Alina nudged him lightly every so often to keep him awake enough to stay warm. "You must not sleep too deeply," she reminded him. "We take small rests, not big ones." Tom nodded, rubbing his hands together gently. "You're keeping me alive," he said softly. Alina looked at him with a quiet, warm expression. "We are keeping each other safe." Tom paused. "Thank you," he said again, more sincerely than ever. Alina simply smiled in her calm way. "The land helped us. We only needed to listen." The night stretched on, but inside the little snow shelter, there was a steady sense of safety. Tom felt something he never expected to feel in such a storm: trust. Trust in this young girl. Trust in her knowledge. Trust that morning would come, and they would see the light again. And with every passing hour, the storm outside softened slowly but surely, just as Alina had promised. Morning arrived slowly, almost shyly, as if unsure whether the storm had truly ended. Inside the snow shelter, Tom slept in short, careful rests, waking often as Alina touched his arm gently to make sure he stayed warm. He did the same for her, though she seemed to handle the cold far better than he did. Her breaths remained steady, her hands warm enough, her body relaxed in a way that showed her trust in the shelter she had built. When the first soft light touched the snow walls, Tom opened his eyes fully. The inside of the shelter glowed with a pale blue color, peaceful and calm. He rubbed his hands together slowly, surprised to feel strength returning. The night had been long and cold. Yet he felt grateful to be alive, grateful to have met Alina, and grateful for the lessons he had learned. Alina noticed he was awake and sat up, brushing snow from her coat. "Morning is here," she said softly. Tom nodded, stretching gently to test his muscles. "How long until the storm clears?" Alina tilted her head, listening to the faint sounds outside. "It is already lighter," she said. "We can go soon." Tom took a long, deep breath. The idea of stepping back into the cold frightened him a little, but the fear was softer, now less sharp, less overwhelming. Alina had shown him that the land could be a helper, not something to fight. Before leaving the shelter, Alina checked him again, making sure his hands, feet, and face were warm enough. Tom felt a little embarrassed, but he let her do it. Her calm confidence had carried him through the night. He wasn't about to argue with her now. Once she confirmed they were ready, Alina pushed gently on the wall of the shelter, creating a small opening. A burst of cold air entered, but it no longer felt dangerous, just fresh and sharp like winter mornings often are. Tom crawled out first, blinking at the bright light. The world was covered in smooth, untouched snow, glittering under the morning sun. The sky was a soft, pale blue, clear and wide. The storm had passed completely, leaving a peaceful white landscape behind. "It's beautiful," Tom whispered. Alina stepped out beside him. "Yes, winter can be kind after it teaches us." Tom looked at her with quiet wonder. "You talk about the weather like it's a friend," Alina nodded. It is. It is part of our home." Tom smiled softly. He didn't fully understand her world yet, but he respected it deeply. They began the walk back, moving slowly through the thick snow. The path wasn't clear, but Alina knew how to find direction by looking at the sun's position and the shapes of the hills. Tom followed close behind, trusting her steps. As they walked, Tom noticed how light Alina's movements were. She seemed to float on the snow, barely sinking. Tom, on the other hand, had to lift his legs high with each step. Even so, he felt stronger than the day before. Maybe it was the morning light, or maybe it was the hope that came with being alive after such a hard night. After nearly an hour of walking, Alina paused and pointed. "Your ranch is this way," she said. Tom squinted. In the distance, he saw a familiar shape, the outline of his barn, rising from the snow like a tall shadow. Relief washed over him. "We're close," he said, almost breathless with gratitude. Alina nodded, but she didn't hurry. She kept moving steadily, guiding Tom down the gentle slope toward his ranch. When they finally reached the edge of his property, Tom saw figures in the distance. A couple of his ranch hands were searching the fields, calling out his name. When they spotted him, he waved wildly and began running toward him. Tom raised a hand in greeting but stayed focused on Alina. "They were worried," he said softly. "They care for you," Alina replied. His ranch hands reached him first, their faces full of relief. They asked dozens of questions. Where had he been? What happened? Was he hurt? Tom answered what he could, but his mind kept returning to the girl beside him. "This young lady saved my life," Tom told them firmly. Alina lowered her eyes, a shy expression crossing her face. "The land helped us," she whispered. Tom turned to her. "You helped me. Don't brush that aside." Alina gave a tiny smile. Inside the ranch house, Tom's family gathered around him, wrapping him in blankets and offering warm drinks. They thanked Alina over and over again, calling her a hero. Alina listened quietly, responding with gentle nods but never boasting about what she had done. Tom finally sat down beside her, holding a mug of warm tea. "Alina," he said softly, "you saved me in every way a person can be saved. You taught me how to listen and how to respect the land. I owe you more than words." Alina shook her head. "You do not owe me anything. Helping someone is simply the right thing to do." Tom felt his chest tighten with emotion. "I want to speak to the community about this. People should know what you did. They should respect your knowledge." Alina looked uncertain. "I do not need attention." Tom smiled warmly. "I know. That's what makes you even more deserving of it." The ranch hands nodded in agreement. Word spread quickly among Tom's neighbors, and soon several families came to the ranch to thank Alina for her bravery. They brought blankets, warm food, and small gifts as tokens of gratitude. Alina accepted them politely but remained humble. Later that day, Tom walked Alina toward the direction of her home. The sun was high now, and the snow sparkled like silver dust. The storm felt like a memory, something far away and unreal compared to the calm world around them. "How far is your home?" Tom asked. "Not far," Alina said. just past the hills. Tom nodded slowly. I want to meet your grandfather one day. I want to thank him too. Lena smiled with quiet pride. He will be happy to meet you. They reached a point where the land dipped downward, and Alina stopped. I can go from here, she said. Tom hesitated. You don't want me to walk with you? Alina shook her head. You must rest. You still need more warmth. Oh. Tom chuckled softly. Still giving me advice? I see. Alina's smile grew a little wider. Only good advice. Tom reached out and placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. Thank you, Alina, for everything. Alina looked up at him with warm, steady eyes. Take care of yourself, Tom. With that, she turned and walked away, her steps light and graceful. Tom watched her until she disappeared into the snowy trees. A small figure carrying wisdom far beyond her years, as he turned back toward his ranch. Tom felt a new sense of appreciation growing inside him, appreciation for the land, for the lessons he had learned, and for the unexpected friendship that had saved his life. From that day on, Tom never again underestimated the winter. He listened more carefully to the land, respected its warnings, and shared Alina's teachings with everyone who would listen. People in the community spoke often about the brave Apache, girl who slept in the snow without fear and taught a seasoned rancher how to survive the cold, and Tom carried those memories like a warm light inside him, grateful forever for the girl who had appeared in the storm and changed his life.